Thank you, Mick, for a beautiful warm-up. You're putting the bar very high. And welcome, everybody. Great to be here and great to be talking to you tonight about sustainable transformation and how the Olympic Games here in Brisbane in 8 years' time might be a catalyst to make sustainable practices a business habit. My story starts, and I'm holding this turd here, with a turd. And the story about the turd will be told later when we're having a drink. So I'll put that away now. I might come back to it later. My story actually starts tonight in Sydney, 2000. I used to work for a company called ExxonMobil. You know, they do something with fossil fuels. And after 3 years of working for that, when I graduated, I thought this is enough. Not because of environmental reasons, because I didn't like the spreadsheets that much. So I talked to my late grandmother, and I said, "Grandmother, I have to do something else." She said, "What?" "Well, did you know that you have nieces in Australia?" And I was living in the Netherlands. And I said, "No, I didn't know I had nieces in Australia." "Well, they live on a cattle farm." That was my cue. I bought a ticket, went out there early 2000, and went to the cattle farm, had a beautiful time, learned everything about horse riding, being a jackaroo, chopping wood, you know, living the beautiful life. Until one of my mates called me and I said, "Hey, Will, did you know there's something happening in Sydney?" I said, "No, I don't know. There's something happening in Sydney. I'm here in the bush." "Well, there's the Olympics. Why don't you come down for a beer?" I said, "Oh, right. The Olympics sounds good." So went down for a beer in Sydney, 2000. It was beautiful. It was great. We cheered up the Dutchies. We went to the Holland Heineken house. For those of you that might have been there, that was a very good experience. And I met my wife there, Milou, in the Holland Heineken house. She's also Dutch. We traveled Australia together, got married, and lived happily ever after. Well, not quite. There's more to the story. We actually got quite excited about Australia, the land of opportunity, the land, the lucky country, the country where you could own a block of land where the sun's always shining. You know, that was our dream coming from the Netherlands. So we had a few more beers, wrote them on a couple of coasters, you know, made our plan and said, "Okay, let's do this." Long story short, 22 years later, 4 teenage kids later, a couple of businesses later, 4 Olympics further, a bankruptcy with one of my businesses. So we had to endure a bit. We finally got our visa to go to Australia and to go to that lucky country, to go to that beach. And we got on a plane, 4 teenage kids, you know, they were all spooked up. It was February, cold in the Netherlands. We got here in Brisbane on February 26th. Of 2022. We came here and it was quite rainy. It was very rainy in Brisbane, so that wasn't good. And the next morning, it rained even more. And I had these 4 teenage kids that I dragged all the way from the Netherlands to this beautiful country where the sun's always shining, where everybody's happy and we can surf and we can... And then this is what we got. We drove down to Evans Head where we had our rental, and the next morning everything was flooded. Woodburn was flooded, Lismore was flooded. We got stuck, and the first 3 months, people in the region lost everything. We just got stuck. They lost everything, so we basically joined the mud army, we helped to clear the houses, and that was a welcome to Australia. Welcome climate change. Welcome extreme weather conditions. Welcome to Australia. And it was beautiful to see how everybody basically showed mateship, joined in, started to clear up, and make the best of it. Brisbane, I think, also flooded heavily. I don't think so, I'm sure. Brisbane and the region had over 100 extreme weather events in the past 12 to 15 years. This flood being the second largest insurance case in the world that bad. So cleaning up, did all the works, and we also learned in doing so, if you break down houses, how well they're insulated in Australia. Not very well. So sustainability means different things to different people, and that's something that I started to embrace. And I also learned in my first winter, which I still call summer, in Australia, that it's cold. I was working with a blanket over my lap because the home wasn't insulated. All right. So sustainability means different things. In New South Wales, there's talk about power plants. Again, sustainability means different things, not power plants, nuclear power plants. So sustainability means different things to different people. And if you think about the future, and I already mentioned 2032 as the Olympics, but we can look further into the future, and you ask people, about the risks that they see in the next 2 years. What do they see? What do you think? Well, If you ask people that, and the World Economic Forum did that, basically people see climate change as the long-term risk, so in the future, but today they're worried about misinformation. They're worried about extreme weather conditions. They're worried about social prioritization and cost of living. That's today. That's the thing I'm doing today. So sorry, the climate change has to wait. I acknowledge that it's there, but it has to wait. If you look at Oceania, the region that we're in, it is extreme weather conditions top one, and the rest is the cost of living crisis, which we're all feeling. I will not deny that. We're all feeling the cost of living crisis. And if you look in the longer term, it is extreme weather conditions. So we all assess the risks the same. However, what do we do about it? Well, we start to do compliance, right? We make more rules and we start to live by the rules. KPMG did a very interesting research about compliance, ESG, and big business assesses the risks of environment, assesses the risks of the climate and social. And now the bigger businesses have to start reporting. And that trickles down the supply chain to smaller businesses, more regulations. Well, I want to call out the elephant in the room here, that if we keep doing that, there might not be an economy after all, right? If we keep focusing on risk aversity, if we only do that and we don't change our behavior, we're basically caught up in a tunnel vision, the carbon tunnel vision, because we start to ignore and we start to see what's really out there as a bigger challenge, right? We do not recognize the people around us. We do not recognize the nature, and we also do not see the opportunities anymore. We start to do the things that we need to do, tick the boxes, be risk averse, and be compliant. Well, that's not going to take it. We've got to think a little bit bigger. Again, we got to think out of the box, and we got to see that sustainability is so much more than just governance and climate. We got to see that we have to think bigger, because the majority of the businesses in Australia are not corporates. That's only 1%. 99% of the businesses in Australia, and in fact in the rest of the world, is small. Smaller than 250 in staff, and let me tell you, the majority is smaller than 10. In Australia, it is almost 2 million businesses smaller than 10 people in staff. They don't have the capabilities, they don't have the resources and the time, nor do they really understand what sustainability means. Well, good luck with your reporting. It's not going to happen. They're just afraid of it, they don't see it. So their standards need something else. They need the SDGs. They need a common language that we have. And especially if we look at Australia, and these are the latest results coming in, yes, we are at number 37 in the global rankings, and these came in the day before yesterday. Australia ranks 37th on the global scale, mostly led by European countries in the top 10. I'll be honest with you, the Netherlands is at 24, and we're dropping. In the past 3 years, it has dropped from 9 to 24. So a lot of countries in Europe are doing better. Australia moved up from 40 to 37. So we are doing something right here, and we got to keep doing that. Well, what do we do as SDG Line? We drive business worldwide system transformation to empower organizations to really make sustainable practices a business habit. And we do that by helping businesses to mature in the sustainability journey, because at the end of the day, it is a journey. Acknowledging that if you're working with the people around you and they're unaware of what sustainability means, and you don't have that conversation, nothing will happen. So it's taking those steps up the ladder and really build that relationship, become aware, commit to the fact that you're going to do something, and then monitor, and then report, and then become the advocate. It is a journey that you take, and it's really important to acknowledge that. We're doing that with a lot of companies, and I have no idea how I'm doing for time. So I'll keep just talking, there is no time here. We do that with several companies, industry peak bodies, larger companies that have a huge reach in businesses. And what we're doing with them is helping them to move away from business as usual, because that's not just going to cut it. We really have to start thinking differently from shareholder first to shared values to system thinking. And that might sound complex, but if you're talking to your shareholders and they just want monetary returns, it's not going to happen. And I know that a lot of people in the room will have that challenge day to day to day. If you want to change something, people have to work with you, and they have to see that there's a different model out there. And we need to embrace the different models to really make a difference. We have to use the SDGs as a common language between the different stakeholders in the room to understand what it means to you, and to you, to really understand how you're brought up, what your values are, and really unpack it at a very belief level so that you can start to build that common language. You have to share experiences and you have to basically show benchmarks. Where are you now and where do you want to go? Just as the Olympics, you got to set a goal and you have to get there. But you have to do it every day. It requires training. It requires that long-term vision, and that's what I love about being here in Brisbane, where in 8 years' time, there will be Olympics. And a lot has to happen in 8 years' time to be a climate-positive Olympics, because that is the benchmark. That's what we want. And if you look at I think it is about 700,000 small businesses in the Southeast Queensland region that have to line up to deliver that. Well, there you go. We have a challenge. But we're not only looking to the Olympics, we're looking beyond to the year 2042. And the good thing about a future is that if you share a vision and we all want our kids to grow up in a beautiful Southeast Queensland, then this might be just the motivator that we need. But that's 2042 or 2032. The future is now. We got to think big, we got to act small, and we got to act now. So what do? Well, the built environment is one of the biggest polluters there is. There isn't any bigger polluter than the built environment because we use concrete, steel, cement in the things that we build. And what are we going to do here towards the Olympics? We're going to build more. So I think 9 out of the 17 SDGs are with the built environment. And, sorry, did I go too fast? Yeah. So what did we do? We teamed up with an organization, CHU. They're an underwriting in the strata, which is apartments. 10% of all Australians live in apartments. So they basically have a big reach. And we started to work with them in unpacking what sustainable development meant to them. And we use our SDG Aligned Toolkit, which is a very simple toolkit, takes you to a 10-minute self-assessment, and then highlights opportunities for improvement. So we take a positive approach there. We ask you to commit to that sustainable future, acknowledging the goals, acknowledging net zero, acknowledging diversity, and also taking the responsibility to start talking to your suppliers, your employees, your stakeholders, and really create that common ground before you then define an action plan and start to train and start to deliver. What we then can provide, because we have data, is we can show you the insights. We can show you which SDGs matter for which people. And we can do that on a gender level because we know, for example, that females think differently than males. We know that people in New South Wales are different from people in Western Australia. They have different challenges. So looking at the differences helps you to get everybody on the table and give them an equal seat and start talking. And if you know what motivates your staff, if you know what motivates your board, if you know what motivates your shareholders and your suppliers and your customers, once you know that, you can start to talk about it. You can bring that together and you can really work together. And that's what we did with CHU. We started to work with their 300 staff members, really got them excited about what they could do. We got them excited and had them even go to their suppliers. They developed their own charter, their own manifest of how they wanted to embrace sustainable development and map that to the SDGs and the Global Reporting Initiative. So to use international frameworks. And now they're working with their suppliers to really get them on board. And they've identified the SDGs as their guiding principles. And they map that across the different states. And they tailor education in that way. So it's a great example to see how you can think big, set the goals, make some really hard targets, and then start to work with everybody on a very pragmatic scale. Because that's what you got to do. At the end of the day, you got to team up. You got to collaborate, and you got to team up together, large corporates, government, local, state, and federal, and the SMEs, all together to create that team for the future. Think that long-term, create that vision, whether that's in your council, whether that's in your company, whether that's at a very small level in your own business. Take time to team up. Listen to the people around you. Really listen. And I've learned that in the past couple of years, that coming from another country to Australia, I have to listen. I have to adapt myself. I am the foreigner now. I have to learn the way of Australian business. And I have to break down my own values and beliefs, but I also have to learn. And breaking down the silos in Australia between the different departments internally, I've learned, is something that will be very, very beneficial. It is time to start now and to really give sustainability a fair go, as I would say it, and to get fit for the Olympics and beyond. So really, it's time to be the change you want to see in the world and make that happen. Now, for those of you that wonder, why did I bring that turd? I'll see you at the drinks. Thank you very much.